Hello, welcome back to Talk Seagulls, and we're back in Earth and Stars pub just before Christmas, and I'm going to be here for a Christmas dinner as well, because I've been told that there's some very nice menus, Toby, wasn't there? I mean, I'm back with Tobes. He's here again, former Albion goalkeeper, absolute fanatic of Brighton over Albion, sort of. But he still loves the club. Of course he does, Toby Ball. Good to have you, mate.
Yeah, nice to be here. And yeah, you're spot on, by the way. That menu does look unbelievable, so definitely giving that a go.
Oh, 100%. I mean, yeah, we're looking at it downstairs, genuinely. So they could, you know what, might have to come.
Bring some up now. Might as well.
I'd have it. But make sure you do come down just across the road from Hope and Ruin, that sort of main road going towards Brighton. But anyway, we'll get back into Brighton world. But it's a difficult one, to be honest, mate. I've got to be honest.
Yeah, not the best. I didn't see you picking up 1 point out of them 2 games. I'm not going to lie. Obviously, my predictions, I thought you would have picked up at least 4 points. Even maybe 3. You might go, okay, fair enough. Obviously, Fulham game. But yeah, that Leicester one, that's the one where you just look at it and you go, because you basically won the game and then thrown it away at the end.
For the 4th time.
Yeah, and that's so frustrating. It's sometimes that feels worse than... Nice one. Sometimes that feels worse than if you just lost the game 3-0. In fact, it's basically, you feel like you won the game. The fans probably would have been around probably that before they scored their first goal, probably thinking, we won the game, and then all of a sudden...
Well, I'll tell you, me and the bloke next to me, and sort of just my row in general, as soon as it got to about the 76th minute, I want to say, 75th minute, we're 2-0 up, and we're feeling quite good, you know. And, you know, Minte's killed the game well. I think that substitution itself was actually quite a good one. But there's still that feeling that momentum is starting to shift. And because of how many times it's happened to us now, you know, even I'd include Forest in that rut, to be honest, because it's a game that we probably should have won in reality. Even the Chelsea game away was a game that we probably should have done better with. I mean, don't get me wrong, they've got one of the best attacks in the league at the moment. But to go there with that sort of suicide high line was always going to be problematic. And then you've got the obvious games in the Wolves game, in the Southampton game, in this game. And it's happened too many times for me now. And I think at some point, you know, there will be a serious question asked over what's happening, what's going wrong, why are we not being able to see games out? Because end of the day, I want to come here and talk about the facts. I don't want to start being one of those people that, you know, either avoids the facts or is going to be completely on the other side and getting really, really angry at everybody involved, because that doesn't help anyone either. So for me, I look at it on the base level of why are we throwing away games so regularly, and how does that happen? Because, I mean, as a player yourself, I mean, if you're going into the last 10 minutes and you've just scored, you know, this isn't like we're struggling, they're on top of us. We've just scored to sort of break the ice, to give that real comfort barrier of thinking, okay, we've killed the game off, exactly as we did against Wolves. That Ferguson goal was a killer. But it isn't. Yeah,
it's funny because it's all based on momentum. Like, they might not really have a chance till about the 85th minute, but then all of a sudden the momentum shifts. We had it this season where I think we were 2-0 up in like the 90th minute, and then they score 90 plus 1, and then they go and score 90 plus 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Because literally as soon as they have the ball, it's like attack, and it's the momentum shift, and all of a sudden that last 5 to 10 minutes feels like... God, it feels like you're playing for half an hour.
Yeah.
Because it's just constant pressure. So it's all to do with momentum, and my mindset can be a thing. People go, oh, you can't change the way you play, but also at the same time, when they're just going full gung-ho at you, you're just thinking, right, don't concede. You're not really thinking about getting another goal.
The thing is, it's like the way we concede isn't even on the base of lots and lots of pressure. Don't get me wrong, we have had situations where we have had lots of pressure at us. But the one example where I thought that we had changed was Newcastle away. And I thought, okay, we've literally soaked up about 70 minutes of pressure in this game. We've not really done anything. And do you know what? If it's a one-time thing, fine. You know, we can prove we can go somewhere and sit back and take a win when we maybe don't deserve it. And the fact that that's just not been the trend, you know, that's what sort of... It started to get a little bit concerning in the sense of, you know, please don't become a theme. Because I'd say after 3 or 4 games, that is a theme, to be honest. And, you know, it's not like we've got a bad team. You know, and everyone will look at Igor, and before everyone was looking at Weaver, and now everyone likes Weaver. This is how football can change so quickly, right? And I agree. The Igor mistake was a shocker, right? But parting onto Igor is not going to help him. Yeah. It's not going to help anybody. Why was he brought on in the first place? You could also ask. You know, we were doing okay. Yeah. Mitoma has bringing on a defender in a situation like that ever really helped? Yeah. Does it just invite more pressure?
Yeah, I think you make that substitution to try and kill the game. You put a more defensive player on the pitch and you try and add a little bit more stability. I think it's always a risk. I always find it's always a risk making a sub when you're winning, because you're now throwing someone into a game where mentally they're not in the game yet.
No.
They have to get into the game straight away, especially as a defensive player, because you're having to like track runners, and when you're marking, it's your man, so you've got to stay switched on. But yeah, I always find it difficult to make a sub. But I understand why. You're going to bring a defender on. He's more of a defensive player, so you'd like to think there's a bit more security. Yeah. But at the same time, they still have to get into the game.
Yeah,
so it's a really tough one, and maybe people might move out of positions, but again, the opposition might have thrown another body forward. So then you need another defender in there to cover. So with the subs, it's you ask lots of managers. There's always reasons why you put a defensive player on, because you're trying to see the game out. But it's always a risk making a change when you're winning, because it's just changed the structure, and they've got to get into the game.
Yeah, and that's really the thing for me. I think if we can sort of see it from the stands, I don't know about that. You know, because it almost does feel like it's a bit of an inviting pressure on. I mean, as you say, you have to get into that game, but in the 89th minute, or whatever it was that Igor came on, what time has he got to get into that game anyway? You know, Mitoma wasn't exactly in his best game either, but he's more than capable. I don't think he would have done that, put it that way, right? And he's probably quite comfortable with his game so far, right? I don't think that he was in a situation where he was going to try and drive the ball out, throw the game away, right? I don't think that would have happened. I can never say that, but I feel like you've disrupted that rhythm. And, you know, there's been a few times now where maybe we've made that wrong substitution. You know, similarly with O'Reilly, maybe didn't have that impact off the bench. But it completely changed in contrast when you look at the likes of Minte, the likes of Weaver, who, you know, were good subs. And I think that both of them actually did really, really well when they came on. So for me, I'm looking at the game in a weird way. I start with a couple of positives because, you know, it's a game before Palace, right? And that's basically the be-all and end-all of this conversation. At the end of the day, I don't care if we throw away Leicester, or I do care if we throw away Leicester, but if we lose to Palace or we draw to Palace, it's not good enough, right? Yeah. Simple as that. We have to beat Crystal Palace, right? I can't make that any clearer.
No, it's such a big one. It's a rivalry. As a manager, it does you wonders. As a player, it does you wonders. As fans, honestly,
and with the transfers, with everything that we've got over Palace at the moment, we are in the moment of we should be better than them. They've been better than us in the past. Yeah, we're better than them now. Yeah, we have to beat them while we're better than them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. You take your opportunity there. You go in the better side and you want to win, but Palace are going to do absolutely anything possible to stop you guys doing that. Yeah. And I think just going back on your points with the substitutions, there's also other reasons to why he does it. Isn't it maybe just to slow the game down? When the team's got momentum against you and you're just trying to do anything to slow the game down, sometimes a substitution can do that. But yeah, Palace are going to do that. Palace are going to try and disrupt you. They're trying to stop your momentum, because there'll be times in the game where you will be dominating them. It's 100%. You always have times in the game. I think no matter who you're playing, a Brighton side tends to be dominating for a spell of the game. So they're going to try and disrupt that, and I'll just see, and they're probably going to try and be big. They're trying to be strong. They're probably try and get you on the counter. So they will do anything possible to try and do that. And obviously, the plus side for them is Brighton have played last two games, a loss and a draw, but probably feels like two losses. So that momentum and that sort of buzz feeling when you're winning isn't there anymore. So Palace are probably just going to try and jump on that, and they're going to try and disrupt it. Like if Palace get the first goal, you can already imagine what some of the Brighton heads are probably going to do. Like, oh my God. So I think it will be a really tough game. But like you say, you win that, all of a sudden that momentum shifts, and that feel in the camp, and that feel with the fans, the feel with the manager and the players, all of a sudden that shifts. Then you go into the next game with that buzz, instead of going into the next game going, oh God, we have to win this, or we need to win this because we lost the last two or lost the last three.
Tactically, when you try and slow a game down and you're Brighton, does that work?
I think any team has to find times to slow a game of football down when the momentum's against you. So if you're coming up against a team that are constantly on top of you, or you're under a lot of pressure, you have to slow the game down, or you have to find times whether just to kill the game. get the ball out of your half. If the game's being played a lot in your half, you have to get it out of your half and away from danger and just try and slow it down. You see a lot with goalkeepers going down, physios running on because the ref has to stop it, but then the goalkeeper doesn't have to go off. So then managers talk, or like say you make a substitution that might just give the time for your players to have a breather for 30 seconds, because when you are under high amounts of pressure as a defensive unit, all of a sudden you're like, okay, concentration, and then you clear the ball, you're like, brilliant, but then it's coming back.
Yeah.
So it's constant. So you need that time just to relax. But yeah, there's so many different ways which you slow a game down, whether that's clearing the ball up the pitch, or whether that's making a sub, or whether that's a player going down. Yeah, there's times, or winning a free kick. That's another one. When your team wins a free kick after being under a lot of pressure, the relief you have is incredible, because it's like, right, we actually have the ball, we're in control.
Yeah. Start again.
Let's just all slow down a little bit.
No, I can reason with that, but my sort of the way I'm looking at Brighton at the moment, and the way I looked at us last season before, more so because we had a better side probably the season before, and the team we've got now, this is what I keep emphasising, for the sole purpose that we've got a better team now than we have done for the last ever. So I remember De Zerbi would want to just kill a team.
Yeah.
If he saw a team that was on the back foot and we were just taking the lead, he will go 3, 4, 5, try and get as many goals as possible. Don't get me wrong, when you're playing against a decent side, that can come back and bite you the other way. Yeah. But in a situation of Leicester away and you've just taken the lead and they've done next to nothing really, kill them, right? And I don't think that we've really had that this year. But when you look at the team that we've got with Jorginho, João Pedro, even Danny Welbeck off the bench, Karo Mitoma, Yankuba Minte off the bench, these are some really, really good attacking players that can score a lot of goals. This is where I probably would want Brighton to be more so, in kill the game off when you've got the opportunity to. Don't get me wrong, you could argue the 2-0 was technically killing the game off.
I think the other thing, you did have chances to potentially kill the game off. I think it gets to that point where you go, okay, we've tried to kill the game. We've tried to hit him for 3 or 4. It's not going in.
It doesn't work.
Let's just sit back. So there is that shift. Like, I don't know if you watched the Bournemouth-Tottenham game when Bournemouth beat Tottenham. So I was watching that at home. And oh my goodness, Bournemouth had chance after chance after chance. Miss, save, miss. And you're thinking, Tottenham have done absolutely nothing in the second half. But you could see them just scraping it and getting a 1-1 draw. Or if Tottenham would have scored, then all of a sudden the momentum shifts and they could have won the game. Obviously, they didn't. Bournemouth ended up winning. But at the same time, it's like Bournemouth had so many opportunities to kill the game and they only come away with a 1-0. So there's times when you're going for it, and it's more just you have to take the chance when it's there. And that completely kills the game, because the longer the opposition stay in it, all of a sudden it takes that one instant or that one mistake, and then bang, the momentum shifts. And all of a sudden you've gone from being really relaxed of, right, we've won this game of football, to all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, let's not lose this game of football. Because there probably would have been a time, obviously, after Leicester scored, maybe if they scored their 2 goals a tiny bit earlier and there would have maybe been 3, 4, 5 minutes to go, all of a sudden Brighton would have been like, oh my God, how do we hold on for a draw? After going from being 2-0 up and being really comfortable and winning to maybe going, actually, we can't lose this. It's so quick as how it just shifts. And like I say, that momentum is massive.
Yeah. I'd say we probably haven't created enough clear-cut chances probably to smash them. I think the João Pedro moment was a good one. Probably should have done better with that. We've had a couple, but I wouldn't... I feel like there's probably maybe not as many clear-cut chances that we probably want to have. But I will talk about one chance and one goal that definitely worth mentioning, and that's Tariq's. And I don't know what you know of Tariq, if you ever spoke to him too much, but he just seems so liked at Brighton. And after that goal, you could just see everyone just sort of give him a massive hug.
Yeah.
And I think when Tariq smiles, everyone smiles. Yeah. And he's got that sort of, vibe about him. He's struggled a little bit, it has to be said. He's not been in the team so much. Yeah. Maybe defensively, there's been some question marks over him, probably because a bit of his size and stuff. Yeah. But I think going forward, he's electric, and he's got so much pace. If he can add goals to his game as well, he's got every right to be in this team.
Yeah, I think Tariq's one of them. I don't think anyone really has a bad word to say about him. He's such a lovely boy, such a nice character. He's just friendly to everyone. Like I say, I don't think anyone has a bad word to say about him. Like I say, when he smiles, everyone else smiles.
Yeah.
I think the other thing why everyone was so happy with him scoring goals, because everyone knows what he's been through. We all saw how good he was. Was it that sort of like COVID sort of time? And obviously there was links with very big clubs, and unfortunately he suffered a really bad injury, and then his rehab didn't really go to plan, and he sort of maybe had to adapt a little bit because he was frightening.
Yeah,
when he was. And he still is when he's on the ball, but obviously I don't know if he's as quick as he was. And, but yeah,
he still seems quick.
Of course, he's still rapid. He's being in a race any day. But I think it was one of them, like, everyone knows what he's been through from being in such highs of obviously everyone was talking about him. He was. I think
it was next to Bayern, wasn't there? If I remember,
because he was playing in that sort of like right wing back sort of role. Because remember he played a little bit higher because of how good he was in 1v1s and how quick. Like no one could tackle him. So yeah, it was really nice to see. And like I say, he's still very young, so he's still got a lot of time.
It's just the same age as me.
Yeah, it's just like it's one of them when you've had them injuries. It's staying fit and staying sharp. So. Yeah, but if you can keep him fit, then yeah, you've got a hell of a player there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Tariq. He's one of them I just want to always see do well. As you say, he is that happy character.
No one. I don't think anyone's had a bad word to say, but it's sort of like that Son in a way. Like, I mean, everyone likes him because he's such a humble and just honest guy.
He can put a great challenge in. I think it's just them sort of looping balls over the top of him, which is always going to be difficult just because of his sort of physical presence. But I think when he is going forward, one thing I've always wanted to see from him is probably more goals and more assists and more, opportunities to prove that he can contribute. Because I think there's a bit of question marks over what does Tariq do if he doesn't defend, because he doesn't maybe necessarily contribute with enough, goals and assists. But if he can start to add that, because he can, I think he can do it. He proved with that goal. It's a great goal. He's cut him really well. He's picked up an opportunity where the ball's actually way too deep from Purvis. In that situation, the chance could be dead. That could be the end of your little bit of momentum. But he's picked it up. He's put the ball into a dangerous area. No one's really around him, in fairness, on a Leicester perspective. But he still had to whip that into that corner, and he's done it very well.
He's taken off so at left foot as well.
Yeah, left foot.
He's taken that so well. Say probably the probability of that going in, if he does that again, is probably quite low. So yeah, he's taken it exceptionally well, and his performance as a whole, I thought, was very good. So yeah, it's like you say, it's just trying to probably just keep him fit and keep him sharp. And like you say, you've got a really good asset there.
I agree. I remember a goal against Manchester United when we sprung about 30 passes together, went from back to front, and I seem to remember Tariq playing on the left back side at the time. And again, it's proof of him being versatile.
He is very versatile.
But that sort of inverting wing back sort of player that he can be, he can also play so much higher, as you say. And probably just a couple more goals and assists, Tariq, is all we really ask for. If you can do that again a couple more times this season, no one will complain about him being in that starting 11 at all. Yeah. And of course, keeping him fit would be one of the biggest things. But probably where we are at the moment, especially with Danny Welbeck, we've proved that we can keep players fitter than we've ever have done. So hopefully we do manage to sort him out a little bit in the fitness front and keep him in the side. But no, on a general, as I say, these are great players, mate. These are really this is a good team, right? And this is what why are my expectations probably higher? I mean, people maybe say I'm being a bit harsh, but I don't think I am, because I know how good this squad is. I know how good these players are. And I look at that team and I think this is a potential Champions League, Europa League side. Definitely top 6 team. And I don't want us to drop that expectation. We've spent a lot of money. We've made a lot of progress over the last 4 years to be in this situation. So don't start thinking, oh, well, if we don't do that, then it's all right. If we don't do that, it's all right. Because these players will not be thinking that. The manager will not be thinking that. Bloom and Barber will not be thinking that, So don't drop your expectations because we were, the XYZ a couple of years back. This is different now. So yes, always remember where you've come from, but always think where we could be.
No, 100%. And like we spoke about a couple of weeks ago or so, and we're like, probably one of the best chances for Brighton to get Champions League football.
Yeah, stand by it, right?
With the squad, because there is so much talent there. And I think it's going to be difficult because you probably are going to lose a few players at the end of the season. That's how the club is. You produce or you buy these players from maybe lesser clubs and maybe not well known. You turn them into wonder players.
You've got players now that are coming for big fees, for big expectations. And rightly, Jorginho could be worth a lot of money in the future. He's already worth a lot of money.
João Pedro's the one.
They're all fantastic talents, and they're all individually could be worth an absolute fortune, right? I look at them as players that could be, invaluable to us. Yeah. If we got to the Champions League position, if we got to another European competition, because when you do that, you give an incentive to these players to think, this does work. Brighton is a good club to be at. it's a short career. You can't blame them necessarily for leaving the club. And don't get me wrong, if Liverpool come in for them, if Arsenal come in for them, it's a different ball game. Real Madrid. But when you've got a player and you think, okay, right, I can visibly see the progress, I can see the vision that Brighton are doing, it does give an opportunity for them to think, okay, maybe another year, because I can play European, I can play in the Champions League. At this club, I don't need to necessarily go. Don't get me wrong, if you're getting your triple wages, it's different.
And a lot depends on the club as well, because that's sort of how the club runs. It's a business at the end of the day. Like you speak to people high up there, it's a business. So
of course,
I think it's...
People hate to hear that.
Yeah, but unfortunately, that's why the club... Not unfortunately, it's a good thing. It's why the club...
Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's why the club's had so much success. It's why you've been able to build this unbelievable training ground. It's why you've now been able to build the women's facility. It's now why you're probably doing work on the stadium. So unfortunately, yes, you don't have your McAllisters and your Caicedos playing for you anymore. But look what you're able to build because of that. And I think the club have to realise that. And I saw with Gary Neal yesterday what Wolves have done and them selling their players and how much money they've done. Because of the size of the club, you have to do it. If someone's coming in for big money, because it's a business, you generate your money from that. You can't be just forking out like Chelsea done, don't know how much it was, or billion. You can't do that because you're not the same size, you're not bigger than the club, you're not bringing in that money elsewhere. So you have to do it by buying and selling players, and that's how the club runs, and they do it really successfully. So as much as obviously fans want to see the best players, that's how the club runs, and they do it well. It's not like you're down there.
No,
they do it right. You're selling very good players, but you're still able to compete. Yeah. So it's not...
It's a serious club.
Yeah. It's properly ran and it's done very well.
We are a serious club. And that's why I want us to beat Palace.
Because
they're not a serious club, right?
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
Yeah, I don't think at the same time, obviously, they're not a serious, but no game in the Premier League is easy.
No,
like you've seen that with the last two games.
Of course, but then the trajectory of Brighton is evident, right? I think even I've got mates that are Palace fans, right? And they know, right? And they'll say, of course, you're in a better position, because we are in a better position than them. We've got more money than we've got better players than them, and rightly, we've done much better. We've been on that, and all credit goes to Bloom and Co, as I've said a million times over. And Palace, on the complete other side, have been quite scattergun. They've gone for stuff. They've put too much money into certain things, and it's not quite worked because they probably haven't done that enough.
Well, a lot of people are jealous of Brighton and probably how they've done things, or people have looked at them and be like, right, how on earth do we do this?
And I'm not trying to sort of lil bro them, right? I'm not trying to look down on them as much as I could. I'm not that sort of fan. I don't like that. I look at them and I think, there's always a chance they could come up again. Of course there is. Yeah. A little bit of a change in ownership, a little bit of a change in decision making. It can change like that. Palace could be above us before we know it again. Yeah. They could be fighting for Champions League. There's no reason to say they won't. Yeah. They're an established Premier League club. But at the same time, where they are at the minute and where we're at the minute, this is why I'm so high expectations because of, and it's probably, you can blame or thank De Zerbi, it depends on how you want to look at it. But he changed this. He changed the mentality of particularly me, but particularly fans, and rightly, I think. They know, he can see the vision that Bloom wants, and he thinks we can push it even further. And I think that's now in me, to be honest. I look at it and I'm like, we're tactically maybe not good enough at the moment, but we can definitely get there and we can definitely do better. And look, if we beat Crystal Palace, we're back on a good way. I think Fabian Hertzler put a little thing on his Instagram. Hopefully that is, a real wake-up call. He looked a bit flustered at the end of the game. I don't blame him, right? It's not easy. So turn it around, go into this game. We've got West Ham after that. They're at the bottom sort of, end at the moment. They're struggling. I know they won last night at the time of recording this, but still there's talk of Potter being there, which could be interesting. And these are two sides really that we should be beating now. And the reason I'm so harsh on that, I maybe wouldn't be so much if we didn't draw to Leicester, if we didn't lose to Fulham, if we didn't draw to Southampton. But we have to move forward. So that's where we're at.
I think it's good to have them expectations. I think it's no one's gonna have a go by having high expectations, because you want the players to do well, and you can see how good they are. I think the fans can all see how good they are. So they want that every week. But unfortunately, that's
not that easy.
It's one of the hardest things in football. Consistency is one of the hardest things in football. It's why I always, as much as I hate doing it and I don't want to do it, I always give so much praise to Man City, because to be able to be that good year after year after year after year is so impressive. Obviously, this year they've had a few struggles, but nothing would. It wouldn't surprise me if all of a sudden they just go and win all the rest of their games.
Yeah.
Like to be that good at a consistent level, like I say, year after year after year is.
It's so much praise
difficult.
to the players, for buying into it and being so consistent and always going again. That must be difficult,
to have
especially
that
for someone like De Bruyne.
Like I say, to because you don't get. I don't think anyone gets bored of winning.
Yeah,
but because they've achieved and they've
you get complacent with winning.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think, and I'll give credit to Chelsea for this. I'll give credit to Enzo Maresca because coming into that is tough. You saw Potter overwhelmed, flustered. You saw his podcast. He had no chance because he was not that guy. He was not the guy to have that mentality. He wasn't strong enough willed probably to come in and do that because he wasn't. He was Brighton manager.
I think there's a slight difference in the mentality right now at Chelsea. I think back then when maybe Potter was in charge, they were expecting to see results
straight away
and then.
Yeah.
Whereas I think everyone, probably even including maybe the Chelsea board or the Chelsea fans, but everyone feels like there was no real expectation with Chelsea this season. I think no matter sort of how they would have done, I think people probably would have just left them, or I don't think there was any expectation for them to be where they are now, because to be fair, hats off to him that they're playing exceptional football and doing very well. But I think the reason why they're doing that is because no one really expects it.
Yeah, and also I guess it's that you've got to be that certain sort of person to get that out of these players that have massive egos or on massive wages.
It feels like they're playing with a bit of freedom, which I think does the world of good for a lot of the Chelsea players, because some of them are fairly young.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of them are quite new, but it feels like they're playing with that freedom, because I think Chelsea have always had a little bit of a bad sort of rep with sometimes how they deal with young maybe players, the players or maybe the performances. Like, I think whenever you used to like go onto Twitter, if someone's had a bad performance or bad game, a lot of the comments would be very, very negative. Again, because there's that sort of expectation there. So I think now the shift's very different, because like I say, there's no sort of expectation. They play with that freedom, so there's not that weight on them shoulders. So yeah, I think that's why Chelsea are looking very good. And to be honest, I think they will get Champions League football. They've got the talent, and I think now they sort of also, the other bonus is, again, they're like, actually, no, we're really good. So they're going into games, again, not really with that expectation, but now they're going, actually, we are good, so we will push it. It will be interesting to see. I think that mentality will be interesting to see. Maybe we get into their last couple months of the season and say they are still up there. It'll be interesting to see how they handle that. But I think, they are looking very strong.
And it's consistency, and it's, getting, as you say, everything you've just said without echoing you completely. And that's probably just where I want, not quite, obviously I don't expect us to be like Chelsea, because we've not got that sort of squad. They've got one of the best squads in the league at the moment. But when we've got what we've got and we can do what we've done in the past with much, much, much less, the expectation's still high. But we'll see. This could all change really quickly. There's 2 big games now, as I said. What do you reckon?
I think it's just getting that momentum back. Maybe a little bit of, like I say, if you win
stability,
if you win that game, you just go right. Like we spoke about it, didn't I? That Christmas period, it's like you've got to build the momentum. Obviously, it's so difficult.
It can make or break you.
Yeah, 100%. So it's tough, because obviously you come off the back of 2-3 games where you go, oh, flipping out, we just want to win. So you got to try and get that out of somewhere. So yeah, I think it's tough. I do think you'll beat Palace. I'll stand by it. Realistically, like when I said you lot had too much quality for Leicester, I think up to that sort of minutes you did.
Well, the Leicester game is one. I just wanted us to win well,
comfortably.
Yeah.
You know, when I used to say it, like being from a Liverpool fan, when there was then sort of a couple of seasons or so ago, whenever we sort of win games, it sort of never really felt like comfortable wins. There would be like by 1 goal we score a late winner, or we'll go 1-0 down. There's that season.
And don't get me wrong, sometimes that's fine, and sometimes I can deal with that. But as long as the general consistency, the general sort of you're better than this team more often than not. Because I put a tweet on the other day. It's sort of the last thing on the podcast, but I put a thing on the other day saying that have we played well for 90 minutes? Which is a very reasonable thing. And obviously, some people are saying you can't play well for 90 minutes. Of course you can't. I get that. That's really taking it quite literally as to what I mean. Yeah. And I'm saying, and even Andy Naylor said the same. He didn't quite get quite as much backlash, it has to be said, just saying, everybody, lay off me a little bit. But when you look at every 90 minutes, you want a Brighton side nowadays to dictate the play. We want to go and control the game. We want to be the team that's better than the opposition more often than not. I haven't seen that yet enough. we've seen that for 30 minutes. We've seen that for 20 minutes. We've seen an individual masterclass from Jorginho, from João Pedro, from Matt O'Reilly. We haven't seen that just dominance, that control. And that's what I want back.
I know, yeah, I see that. I think that's really difficult. I don't think many clubs have that, to be honest. I think,
but we have for 4 years.
League. Yeah, I think especially in the Premier League, that's tough. I don't think you rarely get a game where, obviously it happens, but you rarely get a game where you are so dominant for 90 minutes. I
can
understand,
I
can understand what you want to see.
Take 70 minutes. Take 60 minutes. My main point is I want to go into games and not fear throwing it away, fear losing, fear thinking, how are we going to create enough chances to win this game?
Well, you do well up to a certain point, and then all of a sudden
it's capitulation.
Yeah, I see what you mean by that, and I think,
By the way, playing well doesn't necessarily mean hounding balls into the box every time.
Yeah.
I mean, playing well could be defensively sound, could be making, regularly not conceding too many chances, regularly, passing the ball around quite nicely. Just in general, playing well, right? I don't mean creating countless amount of opportunities. I mean dealing with things as well. Yeah. Like how the good teams do, like how we've done in the past. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see. I want us to beat Palace. I don't care if we play well against Palace, I just want to beat them. But I do definitely want to play well against West Ham, that's for sure. But we will see. Toby, you've been an absolute pleasure.
No, brilliant.
Make sure you come to Earth and Stars. Have a Christmas dinner if you want. Might calm me down a little bit, to be honest. Have a mulled wine or whatever you like. Have a beer. But yeah, not that I endorse alcohol, by the way. And if I do, then you have to pay me for it. But yeah, make sure you come down there. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe if you're on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, all of the streaming platforms, or on all of them. Give a review as well if you're on one of those. But yeah, we'll see you next time. Please beat Palace and up the Albion. Goodbye.